Ever since the start of my first pube, I've been in love with Resident Evil 4. Looking back at the game as a grown man with now 2 pubes in my arsenal, I can very much say with full confidence that Resident Evil 4 is one of the greatest games of all time. This could just be the nostalgia talking, and to an extent, I would say it definitely is. But to an extent. So I remember picking up this game from EB Games and thinking, holy shit, this game looks fucking amazing. The graphics look better than anything I've ever seen, and it's less than $15. But unfortunately, Katamari wasn't in stock, so I settled with this game called Resident Evil 4. Why? I don't know, the guy on the cover looked cool. When I started playing the game, I was immediately blown away. The game was just so fucking fun. Shooting enemies in the head and doing a reverse roundhouse kick on them? Fucking great. Shooting the enemies fireworks in the middle of the air resulting in them blowing up? Incredible. The 2 shitty cops dying in a massive car crash? Even better. But then, once you go through all that, you enter the save room, and you go to the typewriter to save. I can't express into words how much nostalgia this music brings me. It's just so beautiful. Throughout the game, things progressively just keep getting darker and more interesting. Not just through the gameplay, but through the story as well, which is something I have not yet talked about. The game is about a Secret Service agent named Leon Kennedy who's ordered to find the president's missing daughter, who's kidnapped by a child that's actually 20 and the guy from Star Wars. That's it. That's what the story's about. So as I was saying, throughout the game, everything just keeps getting more and more fucked up. At the beginning of the game, we have no clue that these people in the village are batshit crazy, until Leon shows a picture of Ashley and the villager, out of confused and bottled up sexual frustration, attacks Leon. Eventually we kill a bunch of the villagers and they decide to leave once they hear a bell. Then we hear the most important question that everyone is thinking.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
Moving on to later parts of the game, we found out that the villagers are infected with a parasite called the Las Plagas. And holy shit, this cult leader looking dude injects you with the parasite. Holy shit, there's a fucking squid monster coming out where this guy's head used to be. And holy shit, Leon is turning into a fucking monster. There's just so much cool and incredible shit the game throws at you. So many weapons and upgrades you can choose from that you buy from some weird old dude, and no matter how many times you fucking kill him, he just keeps coming back. And for some reason, despite us knowing him for the entire game, he always refers to us as a stranger.
Welcome. Got a selection of good things on sale, stranger.
Now that we discussed major plot points in the game, let's get into the gameplay. This is the first Resident Evil game of all time to completely change the camera angle and replace it with an over-the-shoulder view, which sort of popularized the third-person camera angle as well. I really like the way this article from Kotaku explains it. Take note of the slight zoom when Leon aims. This small camera affectation emulates the act of focusing for a shot while also capturing the feel of a cinematic push. I have no goddamn clue what the fuck that's supposed to mean, but here's another quote from Kotaku. The game lets the player's arsenal and skill grow before elevating challenges to test their mastery. Yeah, because, no game has ever done that. What I personally like about Resident Evil 4's camera isn't the fact that it's over the shoulder. In fact, other games prior to Resident Evil 4 had this feature, but it's the way Resident Evil 4's camera interacts with its environment. The control the player has over the camera is at the same pace as the gameplay. I don't ever feel like the camera is an obstacle. I don't feel like I'm struggling to move around because the camera is hovering over objects or moving way too slowly. And that's really impressive, since the game is locked into an over-the-shoulder view. Games like Splinter Cell do have the over-the-shoulder view like RE4, but it's not locked into that position. It's only when the player is aiming down sights. I mean, except when Leon is holding a grenade or whatever, then I guess it's not over the shoulder. Okay, now let's move on to other cool stuff that happens in the game and things you can do in the game. And by the way, did I mention that this video is filled with spoilers? Well, I just spoiled a good portion of the game for you. Sorry. So now that Leon rescues Ashley, we meet a new group of enemies called the Los Illuminados. Apart from all the insane boss fights you go through before meeting the Los Illuminados, these guys are really fucking scary. This is another reason why I adore this game. It's got a mix of an action component and a horror component at times. Hell, they even got a fucking comedic component in the game.
I
see that the president's equipped his daughter with ballistics, too.
The Los Illuminados are an enemy that hits you with a new difficulty, because of the fact that they have so much gear. You got this one guy with this spiky ball and a chain that has a shield, you got this guy with a stick and a blade at the end of it, and you got this really annoying guy with a fucking bow. Fuck! And something that's very strange is that Leon only learns the suplex move when he encounters these guys. There's never an explanation for this. Why? After Leon kills the Wolverine, Ashley gets kidnapped again, and apparently Salazar, didn't mention him, but just know he jacked the line.
We've jacked the line.
Now that Salazar is dead, we encounter the most terrifying enemy of the game. This is by far the most terrifying enemy of the game. As a kid, and even as an adult, I still cry and shit myself whenever I encounter it, and I'm not embarrassed by it. The way it just breathes as it slowly approaches you through a disturbing laboratory is just perfect. And not to mention, this is a recurring enemy. Lord Sadler is the main enemy of the game. He controls the Las Plagas. Yeah, he controls a fucking parasite. This is because he has a big boy parasite that somehow gives him mind control powers over people with the parasite. He uses this power to kidnap Ashley again. Cut to a fucking knife fight with Krauser. Wait, what the fuck is that monstrosity Sadler's holding? Anyway, back to the knife fight with Krauser. Krauser is the guy that works for Sadler and is also an old friend of Leon who supposedly died in a crash. No mention of what kind of crash, but a crash. So now we got another type of enemies. They're known as the soldiers. And rightfully so. These guys have stun rods, crossbows, maces, and fucking rocket launchers. Next we fight Krauser, who now has an alien fucking blade arm, and the whole fight with him is really exhilarating. Throughout the fight he throws concussions, grenades, coupled with some super speed and incredible aim. And finally, we encounter the final boss fight, Lord Sadler. At this point, you have so much anger towards Sadler, all those obnoxious phone calls, and now, we finally fight him. Now we gotta escape the island before it blows up because Ada implanted bombs around the island. She gives us the keys to her submarine, in which we have to traverse our way through these tunnels.
So, after you take me back to my place, how about we do some, overtime?
Sorry.
How about a blowjob?
Let's leave it at that.
And that pretty much sums up Resident Evil 4. There's so many things that happen in this game I didn't mention. Like for example, there's this giant ogre that we fight in which a dog we previously saved comes to help us.
Hey, it's that dog.
Or another part in which we're on this moving cart shooting enemies as they come. Or this really badass part where we're trapped in a house with Luis and we have to defend ourselves from those terrifying ganados. But then it hit me. Resident Evil 4 is great because it's so memorable. It's most likely because I beat the game over 7 times, but why is it that I did? There's so many games for the PS2 or the GameCube that are great, just like Resident Evil 4 that I played as a kid, but I guess it's that beautiful music that plays when you go into save, or those terrifying portions of the game that you can't forget. Playing Resident Evil 4 is a link to my childhood. If I ever want to feel like I'm 10 again, I will just go and play Resident Evil 4. There's only a few things that can do that for me. Now that you beat the game, you still didn't beat the game. You unlock a new campaign depending on which 600th port you're playing the game on. You unlock a campaign known as Separate Ways, in which you play as Ada. If you don't know who Ada is, Google it. You basically get a short little campaign in which you get to stalk Leon from a third-person perspective. It's essentially a much shorter campaign, but you play as Ada and you even beat Krauser again, somehow surviving the explosion. You also unlock another mode called Mercenaries, and it's really cool. The goal of this little mini game is that you have to kill as many enemies in a certain time frame while racking up the most points. You got a few characters you can play as, including Krauser and even Wesker. Krauser can use his blade arm attack. It's great. It's just great. I know I have gave nothing but praise for this game, but I genuinely cannot think of anything objectively wrong with this game. It's hit every nail on its head. While the story of the game is somewhat cliche, one critique I can give is the sudden drop in voice acting.
1998. I'll never forget it.
We've jacked the line.
A couple of more critiques I guess you can say is the QuickTime events in the game, if you can even call them a bad thing, which many people do consider it to be. The way I look at it is the game is just trying to make every moment of it as interactive as possible. It's not like they're shoving it down my throat like other games do. I feel like it's nicely placed and adds to the game if anything. Would I have mind if they never added it? No. I just think of it as a neutral thing. Some people even blame Resident Evil 4 for QuickTime events being in other games, and even if this were true, that's like blaming the makers of burgers for the existence of burger in a can. Come on. Just because a couple of assholes try to poorly mimic a game doesn't make it the original creators' faults. It just makes it theirs because they fucking suck. And just how Resident Evil 4 supposedly made future shitty games, they also made future great games, such as Dead Space, Devil May Cry, and The Last of Us. The only decent argument I heard from Resident Evil fans is the fact that they got rid of ink ribbons, and in my opinion, I'm glad they fucking did. In previous Resident Evil games, the ink ribbons were pretty much everywhere, and in the rare event of having little or no more ink ribbons left, it doesn't give me that ever elusive fear of planning and strategizing my saving. It just makes me think, well, time to find another— oh. Here it is. And if you do manage to use up all the ink ribbons in the game, it doesn't make the game scarier or keep me on the edge. It just really pisses me off. You mean to tell me I spent 14 hours into the game and I used every single ink ribbon in the game? I now have to leave my console on the whole time and play the rest of the game with no saves and hope to fucking God I don't die and have to go back 3 hours from where I was? That's fucking annoying. How am I supposed to know when to save unless I played the game already? A decent critique would be the sheer amount of tit milking Capcom did. I mean, Resident Evil 4 is out on every device known to man. The PS2, the PS3, the GameCube, the Wii, the Switch, the Xbox 360, Xbox One, it's even on the fucking Android phone, in which Leon already has his code off. He's coming straight to the shit in this one. There's even a port for this console I never heard of called the Zebo. It's apparently based off the mobile version of the game, but the villagers are fucking blue. And even after seeing these grotesque ports, I still get in the mood to play this game. And whenever a new console is released, I always think to myself, Resident Evil 4 is going to be on there. So why is Resident Evil 4 one of the greatest games of all time? Because it's a game you can't forget. So if you haven't played Resident Evil 4, I suggest you do. Hopefully this video compelled you to do so, and if not, still play it. That's it, that's the end of the video.